did I say part 2 in my title? I can change it later. Part 2 of the houses in astrology. Yesterday we covered houses 1 through 6. I'll give a brief wrap up. I know I spent a lot of time talking about my natal chart, and that's the easiest way for me to explain it. I try to include other people I know off the top of my head, the charts that I know, but you know, I know mine the best. So hopefully you can get a better understanding of what the houses do. As I mentioned in the previous video, houses are the stage of life that represent your chart. So one area might be money and another area might be love. I just realized that when I was talking about the axis, the me-we axis, the life-death axis, the learning-knowing axis, I forgot to do Cancer, Capricorn, because I have trouble remembering what those are. I think it talks about security, like basically nesting and building. Yeah, that makes more sense. And I forgot to mention the 6th and the 12th house axis, which is to serve and suffer. The 6th house is your service, serving others, doing those daily tasks of habits, cleaning, keeping up with your health, taking care of your pets, seemingly boring tasks, right? Versus the other side, the 12th house, of sort of being taken care of. It's kind of a victim placement. It can represent hospitals, mental institutions. We'll get more into that because the 12th house is fascinating. And I want to say I forgot something else, but I can't remember what it was. But real quick, just to go through the first house, it starts at your ascendant. It's on the left-hand side of your natal chart, and you need to know your birth time to understand the house systems. Hi there. I'm sort of wrapping up yesterday. I'll try to make it real quick, and then we'll move into the 7th and the 12th houses today. So the first house is your identity. It's your personality. It can show us what we look like. It can point to some health issues as far as what sort of exercise you need, because it's originally ruled by Aries and Mars, but like I said, you need your birth time in order to know your ascendant. Your ascendant is on the left-hand side, and that's your rising sign. Ascendant sign, same thing. And that's going to determine your house system. It's going to determine how your house system is set up. So while the first house is originally ruled by Aries, mine happens to be in Sagittarius and Capricorn. If you have multiple houses in one, or multiple signs in one house, then that is an intercepted house. And some people use the whole sign system. That's another thing that I wanted to clarify, because I think I got tripped up on my words. But like I said, to intimately know your natal chart is really important whenever you are just browsing the newspaper trying to read your predictive astrology, right? We typically read our sun sign for our horoscopes, but while the sun sign has an influence, the most accurate for predictions are actually your rising sign, because it will show like the houses that those transits affect in your chart. But in my case, for instance, I am a Sagittarius rising, but the whole sign system throws it off a little bit. So I might be feeling my chart. For instance, this current transit in Aries is in my 4th house, but if I were to use the whole sign system, it would be in my 5th house, which does not make sense. I'm not having any like spontaneous romances or, hot sexy times or flirting with anyone. I'm not having any more recreational fun or anything like that. So how the transits are affecting my natal chart is in my 4th house. Aries is in my 4th house, so technically that would mean I would be a Capricorn rising, even though on my ascendant line, I am Sagittarius, but because I have that intercepted house with Capricorn in that first house, sometimes I read for Capricorn risings too, depending on where the transit falls. But I think yesterday I said that the eclipse hit on my ascendant. I'm feeling good. I think that was a good transit. The eclipse was on the 14th, and it was in Sagittarius. It was a solar eclipse, and I said it would be in my 12th house. It wouldn't be in my 12th house. It would be in my first house, but anyway, let's continue. So the first house is your identity. It's what you look like. It's your personality. It can indicate exercise because it is originally ruled by Aries and Mars. So it's your action, it's your drive, it's your ambition. And then we move to the second house, which can show us your self-worth, your money, your value system, your material possessions. In some cases, art, because this is the original ruler is Taurus, Venus, or as I like to say, Earth, manifesting into 3D form, right? What we attract manifesting into 3D form. Then we move on to the third house of communication, early education, like elementary school education, learning the 2+2s, learning how to form sentences, basic reading skills, stuff like that. It's how we talk, it's how we think, it's how we listen, how we learn, just basic learning things. It's originally ruled by Gemini or Mercury, and it can also rule our siblings because we often learn how to talk through our siblings, right? It can indicate our neighbors because we learn a lot of our languages through interacting with those communities, right? For instance, if I wanted to learn Spanish, the easiest way would to live in a Latin community where I could speak one-on-one with those people, right? It also rules short distance travel, so your cars, if you have a troublesome placement there, I've seen some instances where Pluto will square Mars or Uranus. You would have a Uranus square Mars or something like that in your third house, and it's people who get in a lot of car accidents, or if it makes a transit, then you'll get into some accidents, right? But at the same token, if you have a well-aspected Mars in your third house, you might be a race car driver or something, because that's short distance, right? And then in between the third house of our house of siblings and our fourth house, which is the house of mom, home, and family, we have the IC, and the IC is your roots. The IC can tell us our ancestral karma. The IC can tell us our family lineage, our medical history, family history, all of that. And then we move to the fourth house. The fourth house is your home, your family, your mom, how you relate to your mother. It's originally ruled by Cancer and the moon. So these are our intimate relationships. It's a very feeling house. It's a water house. So this is our ability to sense others and pick up on their emotions, because that's what a mama has to do, right? To take care of her babies. Very nurturing house, but also it does really show our physical house on a wider scale. If you were to read the U.S.'s chart, for instance, the fourth house can also show us climate change, climate weather patterns and stuff like that, earth shifts, because Mother Nature, Mother Nature. Why do I need to articulate it more? It can show us family traditions, stuff like that. So then we move to our fifth house. The fifth house is originally ruled by Leo and the sun. This is our time to shine. This is us being our happy little selves. It can rule expression. It can rule actors, politicians, being on the stage, right? Being a performer, performing. And did I forget to mention the axis there? Yes, when we wrapped it up. So the axis there is being special versus a sense of belonging. So performing versus belonging. I think there's a better way to describe the axis, but that's how I'm going to tell you in this wrap up. But Leo is our recreational activities. It's what we do for fun. Think about the stuff you did as a kid for no payoff, right? As an adult, we do things for payoff. I am talking on this platform right now. It is monetized, so I make pennies on the dollar. I make like a half a penny every time an ad pops up. Maybe not even that, because you don't make a lot from monetization, guys. But you know, there is some sort of monetized element to what I'm doing now, even though it's what I love doing. Whenever you were a kid, you didn't think like, oh, this picture that I'm going to color for mom is going to make millions. It's going to be in the like Hall of Fame masterpiece, you know, museum. So it's just to express yourself and have fun. And sometimes it can rule creativity and also children. It can indicate childbirth, having children. 11:11 just ran by the clock. Childbirth, children, and that sort of thing. I have seen some sun in the 5th house people be very like playful and childlike. And then we get to our 6th house. 6th house is our daily routines, our habits. It is originally ruled by Virgo and Mercury. So this is sort of our spreadsheet placement, our systems of organization. Because we have to make these systems efficient for our daily lives to function. So this is our morning routine. This is our habits. This can rule health. It can show us how your daily routines affect your health and what you need to do to stay on top of it. If you have troublesome placements there, then you can have health upsets. Sometimes transits affect your health. During the 2020 Democratic primaries, Uranus moved through Bernie Sanders' 6th house, and he had a heart attack. So sometimes transits can affect health upsets that are unexpected, right? Uranus is like the unexpected, out of the box type of thing. So before we get into the Descendant and the DC, I have to take a brief intermission and use the restroom. So I apologize, but hold that thought. I will be back. I'm back. I'm back. My alarm just went off, and it always amazes me how I don't think you guys can hear my alarms whenever I go live. For some reason, I don't know how the science works behind that. So apologies. Thank you for your patience. I also want to say that the 6th house can rule our pets. It can rule our coworkers. Those are our daily routines. It's our daily service because, like I said, the 6th and the 12th house axis is to serve and suffer. So this is the service we provide for each other or for others. So this can be acts of service in like our love language areas, right? Getting that oil changed, washing the dishes if your partner cooks, stuff like that. Is that it? And so now we move on to the, excuse me, Descendant. So if we look at the Ascendant, your rising sign, this is how you come across to others. This is your first impression in the world. So on the opposite of that, this is like your other half, right? And oftentimes they call this the shadow. This is something we don't see about ourselves because a lot of people will hate on other signs, like, I never want to date a Libra. They suck. They're all cheaters. Blah, blah, blah. Or, you know, Leos are full of themselves, or whatever. They hate on other signs. But if you are an advanced astrologer, then you know that we all have all of the signs within us, and they're just in different houses, and we just process them differently, right? So there's not a sign that I hate. They all have their shadow aspects and their light aspects, and it's just how they manifest, you know. It's important to get the whole perspective of the signs instead of just the stereotypes of, you know, they all suck or whatever. But so our Descendant is our shadow self because that is a part of ourselves that we're looking to fill in another partner. If we look at, so we talked about in the last video how the 12th and the first house can show us prenatal experiences, being in the womb, and then your early childhood experiences. So the Ascendant is right when you're born. We talked about how the IC is your siblings and your mom, so that's your roots, right? That's your ancestry. And then now we're going to move into your Descendant, your partner, your leva. So yes, it's important to look at our moon sign, our Sagittarius, what am I saying? I have Venus in Sagittarius, so that's why I'm like getting my words stripped up. Your moon, your Venus, your Juno, all of that to factor in compatibility, but it's also important to look at your Descendant and what's in your 6th house, what's in your 7th house, because the 6th house is serving others, so, and like daily routines. So when you're with a partner, you're gonna have to eventually, you know, with a committed partner, you're going to have to show them your daily routines and get into the same like sync, right? Make sure that daily lifestyle, those daily grinding gears are working. And a lot of people don't even factor that in part because this is the shadow side of ourselves, but they don't factor in how much our daily lives and lifestyle matters whenever we're looking for a partner. On the other hand, with Libra, Libra is the complementary, your other half. So this is someone who will see another perspective. Libra is in the originally rules the 7th house. What you don't have, your partner will have, right? And some of us get tripped up by that, thinking we want a partner who is exactly like us, when in actuality, it's more healthy to have, and like I said, like daily routines and lifestyles are important, but also that other perspective to sort of challenge us and make us better people, even if we don't change our minds. They offer a different perspective to where we can integrate all aspects of the prism, right? The prism of life. They show us our shadow, what we aren't willing to acknowledge. So between the 6th and the 7th house, we have daily routines, coworkers, and the 7th house, which is our partners. They can be business partners, but also marriage partners. So our Descendant is very interesting. Like my twin flame has his, when we do synastry charts are overlapping one chart with another to see how like houses line up, and my twin flame has his Venus on my Descendant, right? So that makes a good aspect as far as what am I talking about? As far as looking for a partner, right? Attracting a partner, love, all that. So yeah, let's move into the seventh house. The seventh house is your partner's marriage, originally ruled by Libra and Venus. So this is love. This is seeing another person's perspective. It can be your bestie. It can be your business partner. It can be contracts. Sometimes it can be legal situations because Libra is ruled by the scales, and so it can be courts and the law, stuff like that, depending on what's aspected and what's going on there. Yeah, I don't have anything in my seventh house. My seventh house, there is Gemini and Cancer in my seventh house. So, like I said, if you have an empty house, it doesn't mean that you will not have partners ever, or that you suck at relationships or anything like that. It just means that that area of life isn't going to be so strong or so easy or as highlighted in your life, right? I don't, but you can still get information just based off what the signs are in your houses and how like that area of your life plays out. So for my partners, I do like to learn from them as far as Gemini goes. And I also wanted to say that the Descendant is your shadow, but because Ascendant is like our first impression and like how we come off to others, to like most of the world, the Descendant is how you come off to your partner. So I can sort of be a little Gemini-y if I have, and they're always like exact opposite signs. So I have Sagittarius Ascendant, to show like the world, but for my partners, I can be a little on the Gemini side, which is like chatty, and I do like to be listened to, but I like listening to you guys too, okay? I like conversation, you know, and I did say I think my love language is acts of service because I have Moon in Virgo, but you know, I do like to communicate. I don't know if it's in one of my top love languages, but I do like to communicate, do like to listen, and I learn a lot through words and stuff. Both Gemini and Sagittarius are very, they need like constant stimuli, and they can get bored easy. And they need sort of, I don't want to say exciting partners because I do like the stability of Virgo, but like interesting partners, right, that like stimulate my mind. And then I also have Cancer there, and I really do like nurturing partners. I like partners who ask me if I need slippers or cook me breakfast or you know, ask me how I'm feeling, give me a hug whenever I'm upset. I'm attracted to those sort of people, and that sort of tenderness, right, of the mama nurturer of Cancer. So then we move to the 8th house, and the 8th house is a very interesting house. I need to study it more, but this is originally ruled by Scorpio and Pluto. This is a house of sex, power, death, inheritance, other people's money, our taboos, stuff that our shadow side that we're like ashamed of and keep hidden, and like dark, deep, intense feelings. And Scorpios get kind of a bad rap because they can go to those darker places, but then I have met so many like just sweet Scorpios. I mean, I've met some manipulative Scorpios too. My grandpa on my dad's side was like, he really taught me the whole like shadow end of Scorpio, but I think he prepared me for life. the sweet Scorpios that I've known, they are not afraid to go to those deep, dark places because they are strong enough to brave those spaces and then like shine a light on your dark side so that you can heal those things, right? So Scorpio energy can make good surgeons, can make good detectives because they get to the bottom of things, right? And they purge out what needs to be taken care of, whereas others don't want to get like down and dirty to do that. But you know, something else about this house and this energy is it's like intimacy. It's like deep, intimate bonds. So this is when we meet a partner and they show us all of our ick, right? They trigger our traumas. They force us to look at things about ourselves that others do not, that we're not aware of. They trigger like inner child wounds that we've pushed down, you know. And like I said, it can also be inheritance. It can be other people's money. It can be taxes. So this is sort of wealth building in an indirect way. So you can look at your 8th house and see what you need to invest in. That's pretty interesting. I was reading my mom's chart the other day and it like read like clockwork. So for instance, my 8th house, I have Leo and... Cancer and Leo there. It's another intercepted house. And so my investments might be in property for the house aspect of Cancer, but also Leo, like film and TV, actors, being on stage, right? So making these investments are something that will pay off, will grow my wealth over time. So if we look at the axis of life and death, right? If Taurus is life and Scorpio is death, this is securing financial stability for my children. If we think about the sexuality of the 8th house, you know, when you have sex, you have kids, and then you have kids, you die, you pass your money on to them, right? Investing in property, investing in film and TV is something that will secure my children for my future children. I haven't had any yet for after I'm gone, right? But my mom, she had Capricorn. Was it just Capricorn? She had a strong Capricorn placement there. I'm trying to think what comes before Capricorn is Sagittarius. Oh yeah, so it was an intercepted house. She had Sagittarius and Capricorn there. And she could make money investing in foreign markets because Sagittarius is the foreigner. But she can also make money. Capricorn is a very corporate type of energy. So she could invest in, she can build her wealth through retirement. She can build her wealth through doing things the traditional corporate way, right? And she has, that has worked very well for her. But like someone else, it might not work well for them because they might have something else in their 8th house, right? So the 8th house can also rule spirituality. I'm not spirituality, what I'm talking about. Although it can also rule the occult, and because this is things like taboo, right? So things like witchcraft, things like aliens, things like conspiracy theories, because that's like digging deep down into people's psyches, digging deep into the world of darker entities and all of that. So the 8th house can rule those things. But sexuality, I said spirituality, but I meant sexuality. So I have, like I said, Cancer and Leo there, and I have my vertex in Leo and vertex is a point of fate. So oftentimes when transits hit your vertex, you'll have like these fated events where you meet partners. And part of my my fated partnerships have to do with that sexual attraction. So let's move on to the 9th house. But before we do, I have to take another break. I'm sorry. I don't know why. I have to take another break. Okay, guys. Thank you for your patience. So next we move on to the 9th house. The 9th house is our belief systems. It's our religion, philosophy, culture, God, luck. It can also rule press and publication. I have my moon there, and it's aspected with almost every other planet in my chart. So my moon is very powerful. And I have Virgo there. So, yeah. And Virgo can sometimes be a rider placement for the simple fact that it's ruled by Mercury. But let me think of someone else with a different 9th house that I can think of that's significant. And that can be like the anywhere from the positive aspects of the 9th house, meaning like a belief system that is so prominent that it brings hope to people, right? That it inspires people to have faith and all of that. But if you have troublesome aspects there, squares, something like a Pluto, Mars, something like that, then you could have very like racist, xenophobic sort of views, sexist views. So it can go in the opposite direction. Hi, we're on the 9th house now. The 9th house is religion, philosophy, culture, beliefs. It can also rule long distance travel and the foreigner, so things that are exotic. So if we think about the axis of, I forgot to mention the axis of Libra, the 7th house. So the me-we axis. If the first house is about ourself, our identity, then the 7th house is about we, how we compromise with other people, right? So if we look at the 3rd and the 9th house axis, Gemini was 2 + 2 = 4, and learning the basics of education, right? But then when we move towards the to the ninth house, the opposite of that is going to university, right? So we go to apprentice somewhere. We go to higher education to learn a broader understanding of all of this basic information that we processed, right? So it's not just, how do I want to describe this? So in elementary school, we might learn about Mesopotamia, right? And get like a basic understanding of Mesopotamia. But then whenever we go to university, whenever we go to the ninth house, this is sort of like learning about Mesopotamian culture and how it affected our belief systems now, how it influenced Christianity, how it's similar to Christianity, stuff like that, right? So it's not just learning like the basics of history, it's expanding that to its philosophical influence. And so this is also learning. Having a lot of Sagittarian energy myself, I know that I will constantly be learning. And those with Gemini energy have a constant thirst for learning as well, just in a different way. The ninth house is really focused on meaning, finding meaning in everything, whereas a third house perspective is more like just basic understanding, right? The basic facts and sort of looking at all the facts presented, whereas the ninth house is more about conceptualizing those facts into higher perspectives. So, I am always looking for meaning. It has to be meaningful to me, and I am always learning. I have a thirst for knowledge. The ninth house, like I said, it is about long distance travel. So those with Sagittarian energy, with ninth house energy, with Jupiterian energy, tend to be like the road trippers, the travelers, the always down for, an adventure. We are the adventurers, the frontiersmen. We want to like see other lands, other places. Having all of this Sagittarius energy, I am attracted to those outside of my cultural background oftentimes. And it doesn't have to, I have dated people outside of my race, but it doesn't have to be outside of your race. It could be different religious backgrounds, different belief system. And because my belief systems are kind of wacky in general, I'm bound to meet those who are different from me. But like I said, I have dated a lot of people outside of my race. That's pretty typical. The exotic foreigner. My Juno's there. My moon is there. And I also have Vesta there, which is like Vesta and Juno are minor asteroids. Juno is a minor asteroid of the wife, so it can show us our how we do commitments. But Vesta is interpreted in different ways, a lot like Lilith. Some people say it's like your virginal, prudish placement. I don't really buy that. I think it's more about devotion, what you're devoted to. So whenever I do get that husband, I'm going to be devoted to you, baby. But it's interesting because if Juno is about our relationships, our commitments, and marriage, the wife, the second house, the ninth house can indicate second marriages. So whoever I'm going to marry has probably had a marriage before I came around, and that is perfectly okay by me. I have never wanted a big poofy dress Cinderella wedding. I would be happy if we elope, and it can be low key. I am focused on other things, but I will be a devoted wife nonetheless. Anyway, so but learning from the outside world rather than just our small little bubble is very ninth house energy. It is, that higher understanding. So if we think about it in that way, as sort of being this apprentice, one more thing, sorry, tangent. One more thing I want to say about the sort of wanderlust of Sagittarius is ever since I was a little kid, because like I said, I have Sagittarius rising, and that can talk about early childhood, right? Ever since I was a little kid, like, I would just wander off in a store and explore my own ways, and we don't like to be pinned down, okay? We're like wild horses of the zodiac. And I, I moved out of state eventually, and whenever I was growing up, after school, I would like ride my bike all around the neighborhood, down to the creek. I would also, late at night, I would break out of the house late at night and go like walk around the neighborhood. I would get in trouble by my mom, rightfully so. That's dangerous. But like, I just had a need to get out of the house and go wander. Right? I can't stay pinned down. So that's ninth house energy. But if we think about university, if we think about apprenticeship, then we move into the ninth house, which has a cusp of our midheaven, and then we get to our 10th house of career. So we go to university or go through this apprentice system, learn from, something outside of ourselves, outside of the basics of our understanding. And then our midheaven can show us our career. It can show us our reputation. I have seen that the midheaven isn't always like super obvious, right? Whenever you look at people's careers. For instance, both my mom and my dad worked for Southwestern Bell Telephone Company. They collected debt. They were service representatives over the phone, and collected debt and, managed people's accounts and all their troubles. And both of them have different midheavens. So my mom has an Aquarius midheaven, and the way I process that, because it's interesting. The way I process that is utilities. To me, Aquarians have starseed energy. They are these aliens that come down from the skies onto Earth and sort of teach us how to build these networks for greater civilization, right? So that we can live as a collective. To build these irrigation systems, to build these telephone systems, right? Telephone line. She now works for an electric company. So that's still utilities, right? That's still like these networks of systems to help the collective have like basic needs. It's it's kind of cool. It's interesting because the original ruler of Aquarius was Saturn, and Saturn is a very restrictive planet, but now Saturn, Capricorn rules Saturn, but the way I process Saturn in Aquarius, which we are moving into, is putting down those systems for that greater utility for humanity. So interesting. So she worked for the telephone company and the electric company, which are both utilities and sort of Aquarian. Aquarius can also deal with technology. So those web type systems of technology, right? Technology on a broader scale to help our civilization. And Yeah, telephone and electric. My dad, he actually has Scorpio in his midheaven. So, he did not get Aquarius in his midheaven. And you might be thinking, well, Scorpio, that's obvious. He should be a tarot reader. He should be a private investigator. He should be, something like that. But when we think about Scorpio energy as far as other people's money and debt and inheritance, I forgot to mention that the eighth house can rule debt as well. But if we think about Scorpio in that way, then he was a debt collector. He dealt with other people's money, right? Even on a customer service level where he was helping them with their problems, he did have to sort of get down into nitty-gritty problems and then heal that issue and bring it up to the surface, right? So our midheaven is can indicate our career, but again, like I said, it's not always obvious. Another example is my IC is in Aries. My roots are in Aries. So my roots are the warrior spirit, the fighter, the me first independence, independent woman, strong independent woman, and it's always a pivot from your roots to like where you want to go. So because, even though I value independence and that sort of fire spirit in me, it was also pretty lonely as a kid. So that pivot towards there is Libra, the exact opposite sign. So in adulthood, I don't want anyone to feel left out. I want to include everyone. I want to be there for others and not have them feel as alone as I felt, right? In like my root system. So my midheaven is in Libra, and as a writer, producer in film and TV, my job is to see the other perspective. Libra is an air sign, so that is like words, thinking, communication, so that makes sense as far as writing and telling a story. But also, as far as Libra goes, being the other, being there for others. I really value the collaborative aspect of film and TV, and one of my favorite things about being a producer is gathering all of my friends into one project, like getting people jobs. I love hiring people. I love like connecting people to the right job. If I like read a script that's like, so my friend Ava, she's an actress, she's been wanting this story for so long, I will like pass it on to her, right? Being there for others is what I like about my job. And also being sort of behind the scenes. A train that stopped. A train of thought that stopped. We're talking about midheaven. Midheaven can be career, but it's not always obvious. So, Libra is ruled by Venus, so that is like a visual. Cinema is visual, right? It is about beauty. It is about aesthetics. So that is part of my career, is that visual aesthetics, glamour, Hollywood glamour. Libra is very Hollywood glamorous. Others might see Libra as like marriage counselor, or your job as a wife, or what else? Legal, law, a judge, a lawyer, stuff like that. And some people are like paralegals or involved in politics. AOC, she's a Libra too, and she has a similar house structure as I do. She is a Libra, and her sun is in the 10th house of career. So her career is in law. It is legal. It is helping people, helping the underdog. Libras are all about justice and helping the underdog, the Libra dog. So that brings us to 10th house. 10th house is also career, but it's more about your legacy, your reputation, how you come across to the greater whole, but it's based off of what you have done over time, what you have accumulated over time. So we can look at our sun, and that is our ego, our energy. That's part of our personality. I mean, it's all part of our personality, but if we want like just like most prominent personality, we have your sun, where you get your energy. We have your rising, so that's the first impression, what you give off to people, the first house of your identity. And then we have the 10th house, which is the reputation you've built up over time, how you are to the public. So this is, for instance, initially, you might meet me as a Sagittarius and think I am blunt, that I am loud, that I like say a bunch of silly things without thinking. But then getting to know me over time, you see, and I guess my sun is in my 10th house, so that is more of a highlighter. But over time, you see like, well, she actually cares about people and cares for the underdog and genuinely wants to know what you're thinking and all of that. Tries to find the balance, the harmony. Let me think of someone who might have a different placement. Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a Leo rising. So he's very boastful. He's very prideful. He does have that, he does have, I mean, as troublesome as he does sort of have that I am king type of come off to people. But if you look at his sun is in his 12th house, his sun is in his 10th house of reputation. His sun is conjunct Uranus. Uranus is a weirdo placement. He is a weirdo. His sun is in Gemini, and Gemini rules media. He says that the media is the enemy of the people, but he has been involved in media for as long as he has been alive. He has inserted himself in the media. He has pretended to be reporters to falsely report on what he has done. He has practiced catch and kill. He has been on news programs promoting birtherism. So he has been part of the media for a big part of his life, and he is a little weird and he is a little shocking with that Uranus placement. Also, he is on social media. He tweets all the time, and Twitter is social media. Twitter is media. But also, as boastful and weird as he is, and shocking as he is, having his sun in the 10th house of Gemini. Gemini can indicate media. The 3rd house and Gemini energy, by the way, can also show us marketing techniques. So he, as like silly as he is in a lot of other areas, he is a marketing genius. He is a media genius. It might be a little damaging, but he knows like how to work those systems, right? So, his initial first impression might come off as boastful and prideful and entitled, that like Leo entitlement. But his overall reputation and his overall energy is being this media genius, is being this marketing genius. And those with sun in the 10th house usually have prominent careers. So next we move into the 11th house. The 11th house is our friendships. It's originally ruled by Aquarius and Uranus. This is the broader humanity. So this is groups, organizations, friendships, groups of people who are like-minded individuals. When we look at the 11th house is something else I want to say about the 10th house real quick. The 10th house, because it is our reputation, this is after we have reached a level of getting our basic needs met, providing this service, we've built a reputation of providing this service, and so now we can sort of outsource. The 10th house is sort of a boss placement, so this is like outsourcing the little detailed work so that you can reach a higher level in your career. So then we move to the 11th house, ruled by Aquarius and Uranus, and we have worked on our reputation, but now it's about, when we move into the 11th house, it's about breaking out of that mold, right? Not having to be so like put together, button up, suit. I am the authority, I am to be trusted, and I never make a mistake. We move into, well, I'm a little weird. I have these little weird quirks, but it is the confidence in your authenticity, knowing that you'll be accepted in the greater world, right? So it's a sense of belonging, despite having your own unique expression, despite having those weird thoughts, those weird beliefs. Uranus is a genius, a planet of genius. So this is your inner genius, but in order to have that inner genius, you have to step outside the box, think unconventionally, be a little weird, think from this like alien perspective, right? And integrate it to humanity, right? It can be how we mobilize, how we organize. I have Libra in my 10th house, and then I have Scorpio in my 11th house. Having Scorpio in your 11th house is a little troublesome placement. Scorpio, as I mentioned, is a little secretive, I didn't mention that they were secretive and possessive, but it is a little taboo. There are some taboo things in my early friendships that I would like to keep private. I'm not ashamed of them, but if you want to ask me about them, then I can tell you about them in my private life. Like offline. But yeah, not ashamed of them. They're just like not they're scorpionic things, okay? Not everyone will get it. But at the same time, my friendships have tended to include witchy people. My early friendships were definitely very witchy. But it's also included a lot of troublesome friendships, jealousy, power trips, power plays, gossip, secrecy, people sort of stabbing me in the back. And I have some troublesome planets there too. I have my Sun conjunct Pluto, so I have Sun in Libra, and then it conjuncts Pluto in Scorpio in my 11th house. And then I have Mercury there, and I have Saturn there. Saturn is like a lone wolf placement. So Saturn in the 11th house is a lone wolf placement. And Saturn can be our fears, our karma, the learning curve, things that are a little hard for us. So my friendships have been a little hard, and it's kind of hard to trust sometimes. I try, but also something I struggle with is like obsession and being possessive of friends, like going too deep too fast. So but also being like paranoid that they're going to divulge all my secrets to. It's very weird. Very weird placement, but that's the hand I was dealt. It can also be really intimate bonds, though, especially as I've gotten older. The my longest friendships have just like grown into these really deep bonds, and I value those friendships very much. They may ride or die. I know they with me. Um, Having Scorpio in the 11th house is um, uh, because Scorpio is so intimate and personal and deep. I tend to like one-on-one interactions rather than a big group. It's crazy because my Libra sun and my Sagittarius rising, they're the party animals, they're the social butterflies, and so they love big parties. They love to be life at the party. They love to be like funny. But then my Scorpio, especially that Mercury, always comes out at the weirdest times. And I've talked about this before, but it's just like it gets too like deep for like the lightheartedness of some social situations. But that's okay. It's like people will be like talking about football and I'll jump into a conspiracy theory. Well, that's okay. That's okay. But everyone has something different in their 11th house, right? My twin flame has Leo there, and so he's more of a big man on campus, more of a that like boastful king to his friends, and sort of like this like shining light leader in their lives, right? The star. And he has like Mars and Mercury there, so I don't know. He's very cute when it comes to like how he expresses himself because he is a Cancer sun and a Cancer moon, so he's a little shy, you know, and then he has that Libra rising, so he's like dignified, lets other people speak, but like when he does speak, he gets a little like proud, and it's just cute, like. It's a perfect combination. But the 11th house can also rule not only our friendships, but also our greater ideals. So if we think about Aquarius and Uranus and these star seeds coming down to Earth, it's like thinking about a bigger picture, like outside of this world, like things we never thought possible. And Aquarius can be about like liberating humanity, right? Humanitarian efforts, where Libra wants to give this one specific case justice and listen to this one specific person. Aquarius wants to give like all of us that that freedom, right? All of us that justice, to think about it on a even bigger scale. So, you know, for me, having Scorpio there, for me, and my Pluto is very generational. So even though Pluto is just, especially conjuncting my sun, it's like people love or hate me, and I could say like the most benign things, and it triggers people. But it's also a planet of transformation. So to transform society at large, to transform humanity, like I feel honored to have that in my chart. And even though it's in Scorpio, I feel like as a light worker transforming my generation, my especially when it deals with like wealth and inheritance, sort of getting the short end of the stick as far as the economy goes. I am no longer in that sort of stinging energy of Scorpio where, you know, eat the rich type of mentality. I want to envision a bigger system that all of us can inherit a world where we have our basic needs met, right? So, you know, there's pluses and minuses. I don't have any bad aspects to my 11th house placements, but I have some troublesome planets, some challenging planets. But ultimately, I'm meant to transform society, transform humanity, transform it at large, right? And be that voice. And if we think about transforming society and our groups of friends, that's how we mobilize, right? That's how we organize. I've been in anti-racist groups. I've been in economic marches and women's marches and all of that. So, yeah, let's move on. The 11th house, sorry. The 11th house can also show us, I think it can rule grandparents, although I would say Pisces is the grandparent of the zodiac. But I think I heard that the 11th house can show us grandparents in our lives. Don't quote me on that. But it can show us stepchildren, step siblings, and gains. These are, and it makes sense when we think about our groups of people. So these groups, these organizations, when we mobilize, we can gain together, right? We can build a community where we all prosper, where we all have those gains. So relying on your friends to sort of, and like I said, that isn't, because I have some challenging planets there, that isn't always easy for me. I feel like hyping myself up is hard. And I don't always get that support, but then I do have friends that support, and I'm grateful for that. But it's like pulling teeth, and I know everyone struggles with it. But anyway, enough is enough. Let's go to the 12th house. The 12th house is our hidden enemies. It's originally ruled by Pisces and Neptune, but I don't want to start with the hidden enemies aspect. Let's go with the higher vibrations of the 12th house. The higher vibrations are cool. The higher vibrations are our art. It's basically Pisces energy, Neptunian energy is... It's sort of a victim placement, but when we think about the times that we were victims, the times that we have tried everything, and our suffering was beyond our control, we've had to surrender to God. And I have placements in my 12th house as well. I have South Node conjunct Venus and Uranus in the 12th house. Venus is very sad. A very sad placement there. I have had a challenging love life, but like I said, if I were to stay in that victim mentality, then I wouldn't get the gold. So the gold of this 12th house energy is to surrender to God, to say, well, I've done all I can, and I don't understand this suffering, but I have to see it from a higher perspective. If you can do that, then God eventually rewards you. Life eventually rewards you. It is an unconditional love placement. Pisces, because they are so loving, Pisces can recognize that the 12th house rules past lives, so I can acknowledge that this is just a part you play in this lifetime, right? And that we all have shadow aspects to us and light aspects to us, and I can just choose to see the good in you and not focus on all the bad like a Scorpio would. Even though like a Scorpio needs to see the bad to heal it, Pisces is like, well, we all are learning, and it's about that compassion, right? That unconditional love for others, despite whatever they do, however they treat us, all of that. And it's not to say that I don't get angry about those things, but I do feel like I have a harder time sometimes being mad when I should be. Sometimes Pisces energy is more forgiving than they should be, and that's partially why they're a victim. That's partially why they have hidden enemies, because they can recognize that they can recognize your divinity despite whatever human action you're doing. Because we have surrendered to God, there is a need to release it. So Pisces 12th house energy is all about artsy stuff. A lot of visual artists, musical artists, actors, Hollywood, glamour, all of that has 12th house, Pisces, Neptunian energy. Neptune trine moon is the Hollywood placement. I have it. Twin Flame has it. Power couple. But a lot of people have those placements. Prince has it. I think Taylor Swift has it. Millions of musical artists and people who go through these experiences. And you will often find people who write their own music, who, deliver these songs that really connect with the masses. You'll find that they do have troublesome love lives. They do have a troublesome life. They don't have it easy, but because they went through those experiences, they can, Rihanna is a Pisces. That just pops into my head. Back to creating this art. So they can write this music. They can make these movies. They can play these parts. They can paint that painting that speaks to the collective unconscious, because the 12th house rules the collective unconscious. So they can create these images, these artsy, beautiful images from their pain, from their suffering, from their human experience that the rest of the world connects with, because they have experienced that sort of thing too, right? You're on the phone with your girlfriend, she's upset, she's going off about something that you say, 'cause she doesn't get your humor like I do. So that's just a silly Taylor Swift song about having a crush on a boy who is with a girlfriend who he hates. He doesn't hate, but who is not the right one for him. And that's an experience all of us have had, right? So she took her little teenage pain at the time, and she turned it into a song that other girls can identify with, because they've been in that experience, right? And she's just one of many. I know Taylor Swift is a very triggering character. Don't get triggered, y'all. She's just a musical artist. But like I said, Prince has it. A lot of people have it. The collective unconscious, past lives. 12th house can rule past lives. 12th house can rule dreams. I love having Uranus there. So I have a very active dream life. I've talked about it on this channel before. Something's off, something's wrong with me when I do not remember my dreams, when I don't have dreams. And also having it square my moon. Usually squares are troublesome placements, but in this case it's not troublesome at all. It acts as a motivator to my creative world, my dream world. So that's my genius. My genius is to live these experiences, have that compassion for the greater humanity, and then have these sparks of genius in my artwork and dream world and all of that. It's amazing. I love it. I love it. What else does Pisces, 12th house rule? We talked about serve and suffering. So yes, it is kind of a victim place. This can rule mental institutions. This can rule hospitals. This can rule prisons. So these are places where you have to be taken care of. And I've never been in a mental institution. I've never been, my health is pretty good. And yeah, I haven't really been in an institutionalized place like that. But an example of this is I have the South Node in Scorpio there. And I only have a little bit of Scorpio. And then Sagittarius in my 12th house. having South Node in Scorpio there, in my early life, I had a little trouble with, and especially having Venus there, I had trouble with my parents sort of using money to have power over me. That's sort of a scorpionic theme. So one example is my mom had me on her phone plan for a long time, like after college, way longer than she should have. And I kept wanting to have like internet, but she was like, no, it's not part of the plan. And I would say stuff like, well, I'm just going to get my own phone and pay for my own bill. And she's like, no, I'll pay for it. No, I'll pay for it. No, I'll pay for it. Until finally I had to like sneak off and get my own phone plan without her, like secretly, so that I could have the sort of technology that I wanted. I could have that internet service. I could have, I think there was a trouble with texting too. Like my friends wanted to text me and it always charged. And my mom was like, you can't, you have to tell your friends that they can't text you. And it was like, okay, I'm getting my own plan. How did I get on this tangent? Serve and suffer. So that was someone else taking care of me. I wasn't institutionalized, but this was sort of, being provided for and not having my own sort of agency, I guess. If you have some troublesome aspects in your 12th house, I have seen suicide and Piscean energy. Kurt Cobain was a Pisces. My uncle was a Pisces. He took his own life. And not to say all Pisces will take their lives, but just saying aspected 12th house energy is common. Okay, it's common because Pisces does feel that unconditional love, and this world can be so heavy and so dense that it's like, I feel like I don't belong here and I need to like go to the other side. Because we're talking about the collective unconscious, because we're talking about surrendering to God, 12th house energy is the other side. 12th house energy is your ghosts, your other realms. It is a house of escapism. It's a house of escaping into fantasy worlds. But Piscean energy knows that those fantasy worlds aren't always fantasy, right? That like that energy that they tap into as far as ghosts and spirit guides and angels is very real. And Abraham Hicks is a Pisces. And she channels Abraham. Esther Hicks is a Pisces, and she channels Abraham. So going to these other worlds and realizing that there's something on the other side is very 12th house energy. But it can be hidden enemies because of the whole... It's just things you don't see because you love too much. And it can be drug use, substance abuse because of that escapism. But also highly spiritual, because 12th house energy can tap into other people's, they can tap into the collective unconscious. It's very Akashic Records themed because they can tap into that. They can sense other people's feelings, other people's past lives, backstories, ancestral karma in ways that none of the other signs can. It is the veil between worlds. It is, like I said earlier, mentioning the first house, 12th house energy can talk about what experiences our mother had while she was pregnant. So this is like preparing us for our life here. Pisces is past life, but it's the other side of the veil while our soul is making these contractual negotiations in the womb before coming into this world, right? And sometimes we rip up that contract and say, I want to do life differently, and that pregnancy does not end, that pregnancy does not come to term, right? That pregnancy gets terminated, that pregnancy, you have a miscarriage. And to me, sensitive subject, I really don't mean to trigger anyone here. But I do believe that whenever we lose a child like that, whenever we lose a baby like that, it is a soul rewriting their contract. And you shouldn't feel guilty about losing a child. You shouldn't feel guilty about not bringing that baby to term, because that soul chose what was happening at that time for their own personal experiences. Maybe that soul realized that they wanted to come back later on, but now is just not the right time. There's several things we don't understand, right, about the other side, but that's just how I conceptualize it. What else about the 12th house? 12th house is, like, I could talk about it all day. Yeah, art, escapism, addiction, institutionalization, victimhood, suffering, compassion, unconditional love. It's amazing. Anyway, I love you guys very much. I will see you tomorrow, and take it easy. Take it easy.